Welcome to Bible Quizzes. There are 80 questions in this quiz. Let's begin. 1. Who was the first murderer in the Bible? Cain, Abel, Lamech, Esau. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Cain, Genesis 4:8. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. 2. Who interpreted Pharaoh's dreams in Egypt? Daniel, Joseph, Moses, Aaron. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joseph, Genesis 41:15-16. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desired. 3. How many days and nights did it rain during the flood? 7, 30, 40, 50. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 40, Genesis 7:12, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. 4. What was the name of the place where Jesus was crucified? Gethsemane, Golgotha, Bethlehem, Mount Sinai. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Golgotha, Matthew 27:33. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. 5. Who was swallowed by a great fish? Elijah, Jonah, Paul, Peter. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jonah, Jonah 1:17. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. 6. How many days did God take to create the world? 3, 5, 6, 7. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 6, Genesis 2:2. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the seventh day he rested from all his work. 7. Who was the wisest king of Israel? Saul, David, Solomon, Rehoboam. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Solomon, 1 Kings 4:29-30. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. 8. What is the shortest verse in the Bible? Jesus wept. God is love. Rejoice. Pray now. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jesus wept, John 11:35. Jesus wept. 9. What gift did Solomon ask from God? Wealth, power, wisdom, victory. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is wisdom, 1 Kings 3:9. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? 10. Who was the first person to build a city according to the Bible? Nimrod, Enoch, Noah, Cain. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Cain, Genesis 4:17. Cain made love to his wife and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city and he named it after his son Enoch. 11. Who prophesied the destruction of Tyre? Ezekiel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Amos. You have 10 seconds to answer. The The answer is Ezekiel, Ezekiel 26:14. I will make you a bare rock, and you will become a place to spread fish nets. You will never be rebuilt, for I the Lord have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. 12. Which tribe of Israel was nearly wiped out due to a civil war? Dan, Benjamin, Simeon, Ephraim. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Benjamin, Judges 20:46-48. On that day, 25,000 Benjamite swordsmen fell, all of them valiant fighters. But 600 of them turned and fled into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed 4 months. 13. What was the name of the high priest during the time of Samuel's childhood? Aaron, Eli, Phinehas, Zadok. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Eli, 1 Samuel 1:9. Once, when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. 14. What unusual object did the prophet Balaam speak to? A serpent, a donkey, a rock, a clay. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is a donkey, Numbers 22:28. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it said to Balaam, What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times? 15. How many years did the Israelites wander in the wilderness? 20, 30, 40, 50. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 40, Deuteronomy 8:2. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. 16. Who said, Am I my brother's keeper? Esau, Cain, Joseph, Lamech. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Cain, Genesis 4:9. Then the Lord said to Cain, Where is your brother Abel? I don't know, he replied. Am I my brother's keeper? 17. Who was the king of Judah when the kingdom fell to Babylon? Jehoiakim, Zedekiah, Hezekiah, Manasseh. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zedekiah, 2 Kings 25:7. They killed the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. Then they put out his eyes, bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon. 18. What is the first commandment with a promise? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is, honor your father and mother. Genesis 3:16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. 19. Who succeeded Moses as leader of Israel? Joshua, Caleb, Aaron, Eleazar. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua, Deuteronomy 34:9. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites listened to him and did what the Lord had commanded Moses. 20. What city was known for its walls falling after being encircled? I. Jericho, Gibeon, Lachish. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jericho, Joshua 6:20. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, so everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. 21. Who was the wife of King Ahab? Jezebel, Athaliah, Abigail, Delilah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jezebel, 1 Kings 16:31. He not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. 22. What city was known for its walls falling after being encircled? I. Jericho, Gibeon, Lachish. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jericho, Joshua 6:20. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, so everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. 23. Who was the first king of Israel? Saul, David, Solomon, Ishbosheth. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Saul, 1 Samuel 10:1. Then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance? 24. What priest raised Samuel? Eli, Hophni, Phinehas, Zadok. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Eli, 1 Samuel 2:11. Then Elkanah went home to Ramah, but the boy ministered before the Lord under Eli the priest. 25. Where did Elijah challenge the prophets of Baal? Mount Horeb, Mount Carmel, Mount Moriah, Mount Zion. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Mount Carmel, 1 Kings 18:19. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. 26. What did David take from Goliath after defeating him? Shield, spear, head, armor. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is head, 1 Samuel 17:51. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword and drew it from the sheath. After he killed him, he cut off his head with a sword. 27. Which prophet married a prostitute as a symbol of Israel's unfaithfulness? Ezekiel, Hosea, Jeremiah, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Hosea, Hosea 1:2. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, Go, marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her, for like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord. 28. Who assassinated King Eglon of Moab? Ehud, Gideon, Samson, Abimelech. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ehud, Judges 3:21. Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. 29. What were the names of Noah's 3 sons? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Shem, Ham, Japheth. Genesis 6:10. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. 30. Which Old Testament prophet saw a vision of a valley full of dry bones? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel, Ezekiel 37:1-2. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. 31. Who was the first disciple to be martyred? Peter, James, Stephen, Andrew. You have 10 seconds to answer. answer is James, Acts 12:2. He had James, the brother of John, put to death with a sword. 32. What type of tree did Zacchaeus climb to see Jesus? Olive, sycamore, fig, palm. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is sycamore, Luke 19:4. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him since Jesus was coming that way. 33. Who was the commander of King Saul's army? Joab, Abner, Benaiah, Asahel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Abner, 1 Samuel 14:50. His wife's name was Ahinoam, daughter of Ahimaaz. The name of the commander of Saul's army was Abner, son of Ner, and Ner was Saul's uncle. 34. Who is the father of faith? Abraham, Moses, David, unnamed. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Abraham, Romans 4:16. Therefore, the promise comes by faith, so that it may be by grace and may be guaranteed to all Abraham's offspring, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who have faith of Abraham. He is the father of us all. 35. Who betrayed Jesus? Judas, Peter, Thomas, John. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Judas, Matthew 26:14-15. Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. 36. Who was the strongest man in the Bible? Samson, Goliath, David, Abner. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Samson, Judges 16:17. So he told her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, "because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me." 37. Who was the first man? Adam, Abel, Seth, Noah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Adam, Genesis 2:7. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. 38. Who built the ark? Noah, Moses, Abraham, Solomon. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Noah, Genesis 6:14. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. 39. What was the name of Abraham's wife? Rebecca, Hagar, Rachel, Sarah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Sarah, Genesis 17:15. God also said to Abraham, "As for Sarah your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai, her name will be Sarah." 40. Who led the Israelites into the promised land? Caleb, Moses, Joshua, Reuben. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua, Joshua 1:2. "Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them," to the Israelites. 41. What was the first plague of Egypt? Frogs, darkness, blood, hail. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is blood, Exodus 7:20. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. He raised his staff in the presence of Pharaoh and his officials and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water was changed into blood. 42. What was the name of Ruth's second husband? Malon, Boaz, Elimelech, Chilion. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Boaz, Ruth 4:13. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive and she gave birth to a son. 43. Who is the author of the book of Revelation? John, Paul, Peter, James. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is John, Revelation 1:1, the revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John. 44. What river did the Israelites cross to enter the promised land? Jordan, Nile, Euphrates, Tigris. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jordan, Joshua 3:17. The priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on dry ground, while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. 45. Who were the two faithful spies sent into Canaan? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua and Caleb, Numbers 14:6-7. Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good." 46. Who was the high priest during Jesus' trial? Annas, Caiaphas, Nicodemus, Gamaliel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Caiaphas, Matthew 26:57. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. 47. Who rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem after the exile? Nehemiah, Ezra, Keturah, Rebecca. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nehemiah, Nehemiah 2:17. Then I said to them, "You see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." 48. Who was the first woman judge of Israel? Ruth, Jael, Huldah, Deborah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Deborah, Judges 4:4-5. Now Deborah, a prophet and wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes decided. 49. Who led a rebellion against Moses and was swallowed by the earth? Abiram, Korah, Dathan, Balaam. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Korah, Numbers 16:31-32. As soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. 50. What king consulted a witch at Endor? Solomon, Saul, Ahab, Jeroboam. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Saul, 1 Samuel 28:7. Saul then said to his attendants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, so I may go and inquire of her." "There is one in Endor," they said. 51. Who was the woman who hid the spies in Jericho? Rahab, Ruth, Naomi, Hagar. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Rahab, Joshua 2:4-6. But the woman had taken the two men and hidden them. She said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left." 52. Who was known as the weeping prophet? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jeremiah, Jeremiah 9:1. Oh, that my head were a spring of water and my eyes a fountain of tears. I would weep day and night for the slain of my people. 53. What king had a sundial go backward as a sign from God? Asa, Josiah, Hezekiah, Manasseh. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Hezekiah, 2 Kings 20:10-11. It is a simple matter for the shadow to go forward 10 steps, said Hezekiah. Rather have it go back 10 steps. Then the prophet Isaiah called on the Lord. 54. What did the Israelites eat in the wilderness for 40 years? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is manna and quail, Genesis 11:7. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. 55. Who took Judas's place among the 12 apostles? Barnabas, Matthias, Silas, Timothy. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Matthias, Acts 1:26. Then they cast lots, and the lot fell to Matthias, so he was added to the 11 apostles. 56. Who was the first priest mentioned in the Bible? Aaron, Eli, Jethro, Melchizedek. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Melchizedek, Genesis 14:18. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. 57. Who was the king who ordered Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den? Pharaoh, Darius, Belshazzar, Cyrus. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Darius, Daniel 6:16. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." 58. What was the name of the field purchased with Judas's betrayal money? Field of Blood, Potter's Field, Kidron Valley, Golgotha. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Field of Blood, Acts 1:19. Everyone in Jerusalem heard about this, so they called that field in their language Akeldama, that is, Field of Blood. 59. What was the occupation of the Apostle Matthew before following Jesus? Fisherman, tax collector, carpenter, shepherd. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is tax collector, Matthew 9:9. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. 60. Who was the prophet who confronted David about his sin with Bathsheba? Samuel, Elijah, Gad, Nathan. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nathan, 2 Samuel 12:7. Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul." 61. How many times did Peter deny Jesus? 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 3, Matthew 26:75. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. 62. What was the name of the place where Jesus was crucified? Golgotha, Gethsemane, Calvary, Bethany. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Golgotha, John 19:17. Carrying his own cross, he went onto the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. 63. What are the first 3 words of the Bible? In the beginning, and God said, "Let there be." God created light. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is in the beginning. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. 64. Who was stoned to death after keeping plunder from Jericho? Achan, Korah, Absalom, Zimri. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Achan, Joshua 7:25. Joshua said, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today." Then all Israel stoned him, and after they had stoned the rest, they burned them. 65. Who was the prophet who foretold a drought that lasted 3.5 years? Elisha, Elijah, Amos, Zechariah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah, 1 Kings 17:1. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word." 66. Who cut off a soldier's ear during Jesus' arrest? John, Thomas, Peter, Judas. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Peter, John 18:10. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. 67. Who was Paul's first convert in Europe? Lydia, Priscilla, Eunice, Sustenance. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Lydia, Acts 16:14-15. One of those listening was a woman from the city of Thyatira named Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth. She was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. 68. Who was the first Gentile to be baptized? Cornelius, Timothy, Lydia, Simon. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Cornelius, Acts 10:47-48. Then Peter said, "Surely no one can stand in the way of their being baptized with water. They have received the Holy Spirit just as we have." So we order that they be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ. 69. How long did Hezekiah lie on his side to bear the sin of Israel? 70 days, 400 days, 17 years, 390 days. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 390 days. Ezekiel 4:4-5. You are to bear their sin for the number of days you lie on your side. I have assigned you the same number of days as the years of their sin. So for 390 days, you will bear the sin of the people of Israel. 70. Who was the king of Judah when the book of the law was found in the temple? Reuben, Josiah, Uzziah, Hezekiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Josiah, 2 Kings 22:8. Hezekiah the high priest said to Shaphan the secretary, "I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord." He gave it to Shaphan, who read it. 71. Which prophet had his hair shaved and burned as part of a symbolic act? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Elijah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel, Ezekiel 5:1-2. Now, son of man, take a sharp sword and use it as a barber's razor to shave your head and your beard, then take scales to weigh and divide the hair. 72. Which king of Israel had a prophet sent to him for healing from a fatal illness? Hezekiah, Ahab, Saul, Jehoram. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Hezekiah, 2 Kings 20:4-5. Before Isaiah had left the middle court, the word of the Lord came to him. Go back and tell Hezekiah, the ruler of my people, this is what the Lord, the God of your father David says. I have heard your prayer and seen your tears. I will heal you. 73. Who was the first person to be called a prophet in the Bible? Abraham, Moses, Noah, Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Noah, 2 Peter 2:5. If he did not spare the ancient world when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness. 74. Which Old Testament character was known for his patience during suffering? Job, Noah, Solomon, David. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Job, James 5:11. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. 75. What did God create on the first day of creation? Water, land, light, animals. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is light, Genesis 1:3. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. 76. Who succeeded Solomon as king of Israel? Rehoboam, Jeroboam, Asa, Jehoshaphat. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Rehoboam, 1 Kings 11:43. Then Solomon rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son succeeded him as king. 77. Who was the first person to be called the man after God's own heart? Solomon, Abraham, David, Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is David, 1 Samuel 13:14. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's command. 78. Which of the 12 tribes of Israel was not given a land inheritance? Levi, Judah, Ephraim, Benjamin. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Levi, Numbers 18:20-24. The Lord said to Aaron, you will have no inheritance in their land, nor will you have any share among them. I am your share and your inheritance among the Israelites. 79. Which prophet performed a miracle by calling down fire from heaven to consume a sacrifice? Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah, 1 Kings 18:38. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. 80. What is the name of the place where the Israelites crossed the Red Sea? Elim, Marah, Pi-hahiroth, Goshen. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Pi-hahiroth, Exodus 14:2. Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-hahiroth between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal-zephon. And that's all the questions we have for you today. How well did you do? Tally your score and post in the comments. Don't forget to share this quiz with your family and friends. See you in the next one. God bless.